All right, Manny, you're good to go.
Okay. Fantastic. And do we have folks piling in now, I presume?
We have 34 people here, Manny. We're good to go.
Okay, great. I didn't see that on my screen, but again, that's my technology prowess, quote unquote. Welcome everyone. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day to show up for the leadership training that we have for this section. We have with us today some of the all-stars from the section. You can see them on screen. We have Amy Diaz-Lyon, one of our legislative liaisons from Met's Husband, the premier lobbying firm in Tallahassee. How's that? Fantastic. Deneen Weslek. Woody has a court conflict. He's allegedly working. We all know where he really is. But Deneen's going to fill in for him today. We also have Peter Valori with his beautiful background there. I love that. Is that Miami or is that New York City? Miami. Okay.
Miami.
Fantastic. Oh my goodness. It's looking like Manhattan more and more every day. And Tracy Eller, our wonderful communications person, of course, Carly Hopkins. The purpose of today is to give you some background for those of you who may not have been as involved in the section as in prior years, and as some others, and to tell you how the section works. This is not going to be comprehensive. It is a very large section, over 5,000 folks. It is probably one of the most, if not the most diverse section of the bar in terms of practice areas, geography, and everything else. So it's one that sometimes it's a little hard to get your arms around. And we recognize that we just can't do all of that today, but we're going to continue to do that a little bit down the road. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And Carly, I don't see on my screen, is Rick on? And I can introduce Rick real quick.
He is, but he's logged in as an attendee, not as a panelist. So I'm just going to share my screen.
Okay. Will he be able to?
Yeah,
speak?
I'll unmute him in just a second.
Okay, great. Thank you. And as soon as he's clear, Carly, I'll introduce him.
Okay.
Welcome, Rick. How are you?
Good, I should be here. Can everybody see me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to
Fantastic.
share my
Welcome.
screen since you're on the attendee side. So give me just a second to share for you.
All right. You all tell me when you're ready, and then I'll go ahead and introduce Rick.
Perfect. We can start with the second slide if you want to move up one. There you go, and just go ahead and start it from there. You go.
All right, great. Well, let me introduce you real quick. Richard, forgive me, Portemanche is the Deputy General Counsel for the Florida Bar. For those of you who have not been intimately involved with the bar, and many of us have not, it is a large organization, and we thought it'd be worthwhile and useful to the section leadership to sort of learn a little bit more about the bar itself. We are up to 118,000 members now, Rick?
Last count was 112.
112, excuse me. I'm adding an extra 6
this year.
Yeah. So it's a very large bar, and it's a lot of different portions of it, and sometimes we don't fully appreciate. So Rick's going to take us through a quick discussion of the bar itself and how it works, and some of the details about it. Rick, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Manny. Appreciate it. Actually Carly and Manny became aware of this presentation, which I did the Leadership Academy and annual convention, and thought that would be good for you to understand who the bar is and what they do. Just a couple of background slides before I talk about it, and that is that, as many of you know, Supreme Court under the Florida Constitution has the exclusive jurisdiction to regulate the admission of people to the practice of bar and to discipline them. There are 3 administrative arms of the Supreme Court. You're familiar with probably 2 of them, that being the Board of Bar Examiners, which of course deals with applicants to the bar itself. Generally, once an individual has passed their background and passed the bar exam, the Board of Bar Examiners will then send request the Supreme Court to admit them. Supreme Court will then, is the one that then will send you that oath that you have to sign and be sworn in front of a judge. And then you return that to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court sends a list to the bar saying, these are now members of the bar able to practice. And so we actually weekly get a list of people who have been recently admitted to the bar. And then we'll, create a profile for everybody. And then we manage the CLE and all of the other things associated with regular lawyers. The other one is the Judicial Qualifications Commission, which is responsible for the disciplining of judges. Next slide, please. So in 1949, prior to 1949, the Florida Bar Association was actually a voluntary bar, had been around since the late 1800s. And in 1949, they petitioned the Florida Supreme Court to have the court identify the bar as an integrated bar. In other words, that it would require lawyers who practice law in the state of Florida to be a member of the bar. And at that point, the bar would assume that role of being the administrative arm of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court agreed on it. And the following year, the Florida State Bar Association held its last meeting in Daytona in April. And that same day, the bar held its first meeting as the official arm of the Supreme Court. And many of you will notice on the official seal of the Florida bar that it shows 1950 as the date that we were created. Next slide. So also in 1950, the Florida Supreme Court promulgated their first integration rule, which was the precursor to the rules regulating the Florida bar. You see here currently in the rule, they identify, establish the authority of the bar as an arm of the court to take responsibility for that. The bar is led by 52 members of the Board of Governors, which include the president and president-elect. President-elect, of course, is the president in waiting, who will take over as president next year. Currently, Roland Sanchez Medina of Miami and Sia Baker Barnes of West Palm Beach serve as president and president-elect. They were just sworn in at annual meeting. The YLD, the Young Lawyers Division president and president-elect, have a seat on the Board of Governors. However, only the president would have a voting role. President-elect would not vote unless the president's not there. Then there are two Florida residents who are non-lawyers who are appointed by the rest of the board, and the rest of the board, the 46 that are left, are elected, and they serve 2-year terms, and the terms are staggered. They have about approximately half of the terms that are up for election every year. And they are determined by apportionment, and there is a formula in the rules regulating the bar to determine how each one is, or how the seats are appointed by the circuits. Next slide, please. Board of Governors obviously has the authority to handle adopt matters of policy consistent with the rules regulating the bar. They elect the executive director or appoint the executive director, and they meet 6 times annually. They also, the position of Board of Governor also has with it a lot of work. There's 15 board committees, and they serve as liaisons to approximately 180 standing grievance committees. Next slide. The bar itself, proposed budget for this coming fiscal year is $48.4 million in expenses, which is about a $5.3 million operating loss, which is made up by bar investments. The dues has been $265 for approximately 25 years. And as you see here, as of June 1st, there's 112,515 members. Next slide. Obviously Josh Doyle is the executive director, and in the rules he serves as both the secretary and treasurer of the bar, as assigned the duties assigned by the Board of Governors. He publishes the Bar Journal, the Bar News, keeps the records of the bar. There are currently 286 employees spread out over 5 offices. The main office is in Tallahassee, but the bar does have branch offices in Orlando, Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami. Most of them are staffed by lawyer regulation and UPL divisions. Next slide. One of the divisions, or I'm going to now talk about the different divisions of the bar. The programs division, which is headed by Terry Hill, provides the staff liaison. Many of you are familiar with Carly, who is the staff liaison to the business law section. Well, there are 74 standing committees with over 2,000 members who volunteer, so they provide staffing for those standing committees. There are 23 sections or divisions, which also have employees that staff them. The bar also provides finance and accounting resources for the sections, as well as meeting convention resources to help you with all of the different planning parts of that. In addition, the programs division also has the meetings and convention section, which plans and helps to deal with contracts involving all the different entities that use part of the bar. They also have legal publications, which is the division that produces a lot of the training materials that are available on the bar website. They also have the legal specialization and education section, which is the section that manages legal specialization, being certified in the different practices of law, as well as the approving and keeping track of all of the continuing legal education classes and credits that attorneys have to have. And then finally, the programs division also has the practice resources center, which is also known as Legal Fuel, which is a department that provides members with resources on how to run the business side of their law practice. Next slide. Ethics and Consumer Services Division, which is run by the General Counsel, Gypsy Bailey, has 5 sections to it. Ethics and Advertising. Many of you are familiar with the ethics hotline. We have lawyers who man the hotline to answer questions about a lawyer's own potential actions and provide them what the rules of professional responsibility would say about that. They also are responsible for reviewing all of the advertising that come in. Many of you are familiar that every piece of advertising that a lawyer uses in the state of Florida has to be approved or found to be in compliance before they can use it. Another section of ethics and consumer services is the unlicensed practice of law, which has lawyers and support staff that will handle complaints from the public of people who are practicing, unlicensed individuals who may be practicing law in the state of Florida, and they handle that. They also do keep track of the Pro Hac Vice applications that we get from outside lawyers. Then there's the Client Security Fund. Client Security Fund is a practice in all 50 states where there is a fund that will provide reimbursement to individuals who have been wronged by their attorney, whether the attorney misappropriated money from them or otherwise stole money from them. And currently, in Florida, we appropriate approximately $2.7 million a year for that, although not every year that amount is used. The other part of ethics and consumer services is the Henry Latimer Center for Professionalism, which provides training and publications and presentations on professionalism and civility and all of that in conjunction with the Florida Supreme Court. And then finally, Ethics and Consumer Services also manages a leadership academy, which was created to provide for next generation leaders of Florida lawyers. Next slide. The Lawyer Regulation Division is the largest division, obviously, under the Florida Bar. They have lawyers, again, in all 5 of the branch offices, including headquarters here in Tallahassee, who manage lawyer discipline, and they serve as prosecutors for disciplinary cases. There are 74 grievance committees that act as the grand jury for them, but they handle them just like a regular prosecution. Working in conjunction with them is the Attorney Consumer Assistance Program, which serves as intake for all of those lawyer grievances. And they're the ones that go through all of the different complaints that come in and determine whether they're worthy of further investigation. The other aspect of lawyer regulation is that they also have the Rules Committee or division, which is the ones who will prepare rules or review by the Board of Governors before they get filed with the Florida Supreme Court. Next slide. Here are some of the disciplinary statistics for the last fiscal year that they've been kept. You see here the complaints, we call them RFAs, or requests for assistance. There's over 13,000 that became in fiscal year 22-23. Of those, 3,300 were found to be worthy of being opened. And then ultimately 271 cases were created. Out of those 271, 180 had discipline applied, and you see the certain categories of discipline. Next slide. Here's the top 5 complaints. You'll see most of them involve interference with the administration of justice or trust accounting, but we also do get involved in cases of neglect, inadequate communication, and misrepresentation. Those kind of make up the top 5 categories. Next slide. Another division of the bar is the Journal of News. Many of you are familiar with that. The Bar Journal is published 6 times a year. It's more of a peer review type periodical that deals with articles of interest usually for lawyers. And then the Bar News is published monthly, and that's obviously more of a periodical of newsworthy gathering document. Many of you are familiar with that. Next slide. The last 3 are more support areas. There's communications, which handles the different public relations aspects of the bar, special projects, which is the HR and research planning and evaluation, and then administration, which has membership records, finance and accounting, and facilities. Next slide. Finally, there's a general counsel's office, which is manned by General Counsel Gypsy Bailey and myself, along with our support staff. And we deal with litigation involving the bar as defendants, contract review, public records, and advice and counsel to the various divisions. We also do committee staffing, and we coordinate the legislative and political activity of the Florida Bar in the subgroups. And I want to talk about that a little bit with our next slide, which is the bar legislative positions. Many of you are familiar with that the bar is limited in what type of advocacy they can take. Many of you are familiar with the Janus decision, came out in 2018, and we still have some fallout from that in terms of what we can do moving forward. The bar in and of itself, the big bar, as well as most of the committees, because they are mandatory dues paying, has limited on what type of positions they can take. These are the 4 that were part of the 22-24 legislative positions. They have all now been sunset. Many of you are familiar that we're in the process of now sunsetting and reopening our legislative positions. And so the bar will probably have these 4 come up as part of their 24-26 legislative positions. And then we're going to be obviously reviewing the section ones as they come forward. So I think that covers my 15 minutes. I think I was right on the nose, but if you have any questions, please let me know. And, hopefully, you guys, I know that was a very brief and quick introduction of what the 286 lawyer or members of the bar does, but hopefully that was helpful to you. That's all I've got.
Rick, thank you very much. I'm very amazed, and I think Amy is as well, that you could cover the entire bar, the structure and the details of the bar so well in 15 minutes. Thank you very much for that. And if people have questions, can they reach out to you at your Florida Bar address and your Florida Bar?
Absolutely. Just send me an email or give me a call, and I will respond to them. No worries.
Fantastic. Just a quick update. Again, I'm on webinar, I guess, presentation mode. I can't see everyone that's on here, but I do know that Mark Stein, our past chair, immediate past chair, is on. and so is Robert Barron, our secretary. And our next person is also on, our next presenter, that's Greg Yadley. Many of you know Greg. Hopefully all of you know Greg very well for a whole bunch of reasons. One is that he's a past chair of the section, and we obviously like to honor our past chairs. One of the strengths of the section, as it is with all other sections, is the participation of past chairs, and we have very, very strong participation from our past chairs. And in fact, the business law section has a committee called long-range planning. Long-range planning is the heart and soul of the section because it is comprised of past chairs. And they get together, they speak frequently, and they help the entire executive council move forward on everything from policy to practical decisions to just the tone and tenor of the section itself. To give you a better explanation of what long-range planning is and how it works and how leadership works, then it's Greg is going to give us a presentation. And again, Steph Lee gives her regrets. She is traveling right now for work and could not attend. As try as she might, she tried to log in while she's 30,000 feet up in the air, but didn't quite work. Greg, are you ready to move forward there?
Yeah, if you can hear me, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, great. I was unable to log into the link you just sent me, Carly, so I'm not sure what's going on, but anyway, I'm here and I don't have a video prompt, so I dressed up, but you'll just have to take my voice. I will be brief here. Manny, thanks for the kind introduction, and that was a pretty good description of what the Long Range Planning Committee does. I think its greatest strength is that it is populated by past chairs of the section who still care deeply about our mission and our colleagues and strive to keep us as professional as we can be. Our main task is to help develop future leaders of the section. We want to assure that we continue to have the strong and capable leadership that we have under Manny now and Mark before that, and a whole host of wonderful chairs. We take our charge quite seriously, so we're pleased that we have so many past chairs who are willing to help promote future leaders and so many worthy and dedicated section members, including all of you who believe in the importance of service. Our most recent accomplishment, and one of which we're very proud, was to present the slate of officers for section leadership for this current 2024-2025 bar year. We had meetings on May 23rd and May 30th that included 17 members, all past chairs, which is nearly 60% of the living past chairs of the section. And that included our newest member, Doug Bates, who preceded Mark as chair. Our recommendations for leadership were unanimously approved by the Executive Council in June at the annual meeting. And just to recap, behind Manny as chair is Stephanie Lieb, chair-elect, who's in the air, Treasurer Peter Valori, who's on, and Secretary Robert Barron, who's also on the call. In addition to the officers and the substantive law committees, the Long Range Planning Committee pays close attention to the staffing of the Legislation Committee. And I'm going to try and be short so that they will have more time, because that is a truly important committee, as are many other committees and task forces. So we believe that your participation in these groups is a way to demonstrate leadership, to become familiar with the work of the substantive sections beyond your primary area of practice. We are pretty complex and mirror the complexity of the big bar. So working in these substantive and support areas promotes an in-depth understanding of how the section functions and provides ample opportunity for leadership. We strive to foster diversity and inclusion and achieve broad representation in a really wide sense. All practice areas, geographies, as well as people's individual backgrounds and segments of the population. Our goal is to provide a leadership pathway for all lawyers, including those in small firms, in smaller cities, in underrepresented groups, really anywhere that somebody wants to raise their hand and help, we want to provide that opportunity. We believe that collaborative service benefits us all and it benefits the citizens of the state. So that's what we want to do. Thank you very, very much for your commitment and your time. Please let me know if I can ever be of assistance to you in your current role and your interest in continuing to serve the section in other ways. And Manny, that's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Greg, thank you very much. It's a wonderful summary of where we are and what we do. We have a couple of minutes. Can we ask you a couple questions?
Of course.
One of the, we often get the question, how do I, quote unquote, advance within the section? And how do I move forward into leadership positions? What is the best way for folks who really love the section's mission and really want to help? What is the best way for them to do that, to advance in the section?
That is a great question, and it's a wonderful question, and the answer is really pretty simple. Just keep volunteering. And I say this not in jest, but service is its own reward. We would love it if everyone could aspire to be chair of the section. In fact, with the over 5,000 members, an executive council that is 70 or so people, that's probably not likely. But what it really means is if you're interested, it's definitely possible. Patience is required. And if you look around and ask yourselves, and I'll ask you, Manny, how many years you've been serving before you became chair. I can tell you that I've been active in the section since 1982. So the service never ends. But really, there are so many opportunities, and a lot of the joy is being able to participate as a member of the executive council and go on executive council retreats and develop the deep professional and personal friendships that come with that. So Manny, you're just now chair. How many years have you been working for the section?
Oh boy, put it to you this way. I started attending the Labor Day retreat when my daughters were very, very young, and they are now in their 30s. And the point is, your point is well taken, Greg. The reason there are two reasons to be involved in the section. One is, of course, service. One of our jobs as a lawyer, if you look at the rules regulating the Florida bar, is service to the bar, service to the community. That is the primary reason. But perhaps an even better reason is the one that Judge Williamson, our dearly departed former chair and also member of long range planning, used to say. He would always say, I attend the business law section meetings because this is where all my friends are. And that's the neatest thing about the section, is that we really are a whole bunch of friends. We are really our family. So participate, get involved. I'm getting lots of suggestions and ideas. You all have my email. Be sure to send me whatever ideas you have. We run everything past the executive committee, past the executive council, past long range planning. We try to incorporate all those ideas. We want to be innovative. We want to work hard. So if you do those things and listen to what Greg tells you, you're going to advance in the section. Fantastic. Let me see if we can't move the agenda around a little bit, because Greg gave a really wonderful intro to legislation. The section really has three goals, three primary missions. One is to mentor And we do that extensively. We are the section of the Florida Bar that has the most mentorship opportunities. We have the most judges. We pride ourselves on our mentorship. Another is to advocate, and Deneen's going to work double duty here, because one of the things that Deneen does is she chairs the amicus committee. The section is sometimes asked to jump into different cases and advise the courts what's the proper business resolution or law in a particular subject. And sometimes it decides it's best for the business community and the business laws of the state of Florida to advocate for a particular position. That's the amicus committee. And third is legislate. And legislate is in the broad sense, meaning that we obviously don't do legislation ourselves, but the legislative committee of the section is very active. If you look at the business laws of the state of Florida, the business law section itself has been very, very active in helping the Florida legislature adopt and revise those particular laws. To take us through this is going to be Deneen and Amy Diaz-Lyon, are one of our legislative liaisons, and they're going to describe the process to us. So Deneen, take it. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Manny. I really appreciate it. And I will definitely, I'm going to do a lot of the talking, but I'm going to give all props to Amy. You notice it's a Mets husband PowerPoint, not a DPW legal PowerPoint, and she really keeps things running. We've already kind of talked about what the committee is. I would say it's the committee that directs traffic on legislative issues within the section. We ensure that we have consensus on positions that we take and work with our lobbyists to make it happen. And we are really here to support the substantive committees, the task forces on their journey to make sure that the business of doing business in Florida is sound, is really what it comes down to. Here's a quick view of our members. As Manny mentioned, Woody's off lawyering. So he dropped this in my lap, which is just fine. Deneen Waslick, I'm the vice chair. Marianne Doris is our second vice chair. We also have our two academic chairs, Professor David and Professor Cohn, who bring a wealth of experience in legislative issues to the table. And of course, the power behind this engine are Amy Diaz-Lyon and Doug Bell, our legislative consultants. They really work tirelessly to make sure that whatever we envision happens in the state of Florida, which we're really grateful for. The committee meets a lot. We meet in person at the annual convention, Labor Day retreat, and the winter meeting. We also have, lots of conference calls, weekly conference calls during the legislative committee week and during session, and other meetings as needed. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation when we talk about the timeline. But just know that, we're here making sure that the legislative engine of the section is running smoothly. We're going to just touch the surface of all of that in this presentation today, but there's a lot of good resources on the website. So the link is there, navigate to our standing committee of legislation, and you will find, the important dates, the legislation that we're talking about, how to do things, what a mysterious triple motion is, although I'm going to touch on that too and see if I can clear the mystery up a little bit as we do that as well in this presentation. Go there. We're obviously always here to help, but if you go there, you'll have a lot of good resources. The right form to draft legislation is on that website, so check it out. As Rick mentioned, we are a mandatory bar, but we are a voluntary section, and so there is a real fine line that we are able to take some positions that because of our voluntary nature, but we still have to work within the confines of the big bar. And to understand that, you really have to, take a quick Florida Con Law 101, sort of how the power flows, which I'll do that now. The Supreme Court, under our Constitution, has the exclusive jurisdiction to regulate, as Rick had mentioned. And in doing that, the rules include a rule allowing lawyers to provide information and advice to courts, the amicus committee, and all other branches, the legislation committee, concerning current law and proposed or contemplated changes in law. So that's really where the power for us to act as a section comes from. The standing bar rules include, sort of talk about what legislative committee activity is. You could take a look at that. But that's sort of the framework that we're working within when we're talking about legislative issues as part of the section. How does a committee or task force idea become a law? I will not sing Schoolhouse Rock to you. This is the process that precedes everything going to the legislature, really how the sausage gets made as far as what we're doing to make sure that we are presenting quality information and support to the legislature to make sure our objectives of supporting business in Florida are met. So step one is, everything that happens internally, getting business law section executive council approval. And there's a lot of mini steps to that. First you start in a substantive committee or task force to come up with the substantive language. Sometimes that comes to us because we have an idea or see something that needs to be fixed. Sometimes it comes to us because we have a legislator ask us if they're interested in an issue and want us to help them develop good law. Either way, we have a substantive committee or task force that is charged with coming up with good language and working together to make sure we have good language, and a supporting white paper, which is basically a policy paper that explains why this is good law for the state of Florida. And there's some components to it. We have information on how to do that on the website, but you have to have a white paper in order to move forward, as well as the language of the statute. And then you sort of draft the triple motion language, which I'll talk about again in a moment, to how we're going to bring this to what the policy really is, what the position is. There may be a 500-page statute, but we need to summarize it in a sentence or two to tell the rest of the membership what we are proposing to be the policy that we are proposing to the legislature. Then we get that information out to all of the other substantive committees. Often the proponents of the bill will appear at those substantive committees to answer questions about that. That's why our in-person meetings can be so important for that, to get on the agenda for that. And then, after doing that, comes the BLS Legislation Committee and say, hey, we have this statute, we have a white paper, we've gotten buy-in, can we bring this to the Executive Council Committee, which, hopefully we'll be in this position to do. And then all of that goes to the Executive Council at least 2 weeks prior to the meeting, so everybody has a chance to look at. And our bylaws say that has to pass by 60%. So, when we talk about a triple motion, we're really going through a very large vetting process even before it gets to the Executive Council. And you can see that there's a real timeline to it to get it done. Okay. You keep saying triple motion. What is a triple motion? Really, there's these three, the language of the rules are on the thing. I really think of it as jurisdiction, consistency, and unity. Is it within our purview, the bylaws of the business law section? Generally, yes, if we're talking about it, but the Executive Council has to vote to say that it is. Secondly, is it either consistent with an existing bar position or something outside the bar position that is okay? And then the next sort of guideline is this going to have deep philosophical or emotional division among a substantial number of the bar membership? If it is, then, we shouldn't move forward with it. And there's still another check and balance on that issue later. So you're not going to see sections taking positions on really controversial subjects that are before the legislature. And, even within business law, there are sometimes really controversial subjects that are within that are coming to the legislature. So we really have to think through that sort of bigger picture. We have over 100,000 members of the bar, as was said earlier. So we have to make sure we're thinking through. I mean, it doesn't have to be unanimity, obviously, but just not divisiveness. So that's a triple motion. That's what we're certifying when we pass a triple motion, are those three things. And then that's just the internal to the section. Then we have to go to the Florida bar to get approval. So our step one is our internal approval, the 2/3 vote by the Executive Council. And then we go to the bar and provide all of this information to the bar, the details, the white paper, all those things, circulate notice to all the other sections, just kind of like we circulated everything within the section to all the substantive committees. Now all the sections of the bar have a chance to look and say, wait a second, we do think this is divisive, or hopefully not. And then we get approval to take that provision and move forward. A lot of the nuts and bolts of that procedure is done by Amy and Doug, but obviously, again, it's a time-consuming process that needs to be done before we can even begin to, ask someone to bring a piece of legislation forward. But but then that's when the real work starts. You know, we've done all this work to write it. Now we actually want to make it the law, right? So we have to move forward to do that. That's where Amy and Doug really, really shine. They work to secure sponsors for the bill. You know, House members can only sponsor a maximum of 7 bills a session. So there's often a lot of jockeying to be on their dance card to make sure we have someone to sponsor our legislation. Navigate the committee approval process. Often that is when members are called on to come in and lend their expertise again to explain this information to the legislators. This is how I found myself explaining why the term sexual activity apparatus needed to be in section 495, 111 to 810 of Florida statutes a couple of years ago. Amy's laughing because she sent me a text like, you need to be here and explain this to me. Why are we talking about sex toys? You know, and it was because it was a trademark thing. Get your mind out of the gutter. But yeah, so that's the kind of thing, you know, the people who have worked on the substantive committees to, you know, put the stuff together, then help support Amy and Doug in explaining this to committees, explaining this, sometimes testifying. Sometimes it's driving to Tallahassee to sign a little piece of paper, said, yes, I hear, I'm not actually testifying, but I've testified, and leaving. But that kind of support is so necessary. So if you get a call from the legislation committee or Amy or Doug saying, please come up here if you possibly can, do, because it's so important. You know, once committees and sessions start, Amy and Doug are in the Capitol every day. I commend you to see them in action. It's pretty amazing to watch them navigate those halls with such ease and knowing everybody and really just making everybody know what has to be done. So it's a really long process. Here's some of the key dates. You know, we started our new section. We have an election coming up. I will say that if you know a newly elected person coming up in November, please let us know. It's really helpful if we have those personal connections to be able to, you know, to be able to have an ear, really, to talk to someone and say, hey, you can help us with this important legislation. So keep an eye on that. In November, the legislature starts organizing right after that, and we really start getting our work done right after that. So there's committees meeting between November and February. The session, this is a quote unquote late session because it starts in March. Sometimes the sessions start in January, it kind of alternates, but that doesn't mean that we can just wait around. We have to do all the work well in advance to be ready for the legislative session in 2025. And you'll see 2026 session is an earlier session because it starts in January. So we have an even shorter string as far as what we're doing. But, you know, all of the intermediate steps take time. And so it's really important that we start early on in the process as soon as we know about an issue that we need to deal with so we can get it going. We can't put forth 30 bills in a session because we just can't get that kind of, we don't want to waste your political capital on 30 different things at once. We really try to narrow it down, but we want to work with you on all of your issues. Here's our contact information. It's also obviously all on the BAR website. Amy, how did I do? Did I cover everything?
That was fantastic. I think Annie would probably agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
We have a couple of minutes. Do you have time to answer a couple of questions?
Sure, absolutely.
One of the things that I think folks need to understand that if Amy or Doug or any leadership from the legislation committee calls you, especially during session, please answer that call right away. The stories are legion of Amy and Doug being in the Capitol and a representative or a senator is asking questions and they want an answer right there and then. So if someone calls you, please answer that right away because they're calling you because they need information and they need information very, very quickly. And we want to reemphasize there are a bunch of different steps that we need to take in order to have any legislation that we support move through the process. As you saw, it takes a bit of time and we have to jump through several hoops due to the fact that you are a part of the Florida Supreme Court that is lobbying the Florida legislature. It takes a bit of time. So please, if you've got something that you want to move forward, please do it very, very early. Reach out to legislation committee, reach out to Amy and Doug, and get your stuff done as early as possible. The legislation committee maybe the hardest working committee in the entire section, because during session, they are always on call and always working. So those are the two things I wanted to say. And Amy, Deneen, anything further before we move on to CLE?
Nope, give the floor to Kathy.
Okay, great. Fantastic presentation. Let's move on
Thanks
to
much.
CLE. We talked about the fact that the section itself really has only three tasks. One is to advocate. Again, Deneen and the amicus committee do that, and Judge LaRose is the judicial chair of that. Together with Deneen, they review those particular proposals and take positions. The other is to legislate, and Deneen doing double duty here, and she just spoke about what we do there. The third, maybe the most important, is to mentor. One of the things that the section does very, very well is to mentor. As part of that particular process, CLE is extraordinarily important. There are many members of the section that teach either full-time or as adjuncts. And if you speak to them, they'll be able to tell you, yes, we really enjoy teaching, but we recognize that law school really doesn't get you all the way there in terms of becoming a practicing lawyer. And we really need another step. That's where the CLE committee comes in. The section has extraordinary CLE offerings and does an extraordinary job. We're going to have Kathleen DeSanto, chair of the CLE committee, explain CLE. And Carly, I believe you're also going to sort of jump in to let people know what we've done this particular year to make the CLE process a little bit smoother.
Yeah.
Floor is yours, Kathleen.
Can y'all see the section website right now, or?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Kathleen, I'll share for you.
Thank you, Carly. I appreciate it. And thank you, Manny, for the kind words of introduction. My name is Kathleen DeSanto. I'm at Bush Ross in Tampa, and I have the privilege of serving as the chair of the CLE committee. We are led by our judicial chair, Judge Carol Delano. She's a bankruptcy judge, the chief bankruptcy judge of the Middle District of Florida. She's also in Tampa. Dan Etlinger serves as our vice chair, and Don Conwell as our second vice chair. We're very much here for you and look forward to supporting the section this year. Education is always an important thing, whether you are a new graduate from law school or whether you've been practicing for a few years and are a seasoned lawyer. I hail from Virginia, the University of Virginia, go Hoos. But Thomas Jefferson was a big fan of lifelong learning. So I think this is going to be a great spot for our group this year. And we're looking forward to bringing some quality presentations to the bar and to our section members. We recently revamped the business law section webpage to add a tab for CLE because we feel like it's really important. So it's right there on the landing screen. If you click on that tab, it'll take you to a page that has recently presented CLE programs. These are webinars that members of our section have put on over the past few months. These are the paid programs that we're all going to be responsible for putting on over the course of the bar year. You also can reach our committee page, which has a lot of helpful and valuable information by clicking on the link that Carly just did. Got our beautiful smiling faces up there. And then there's two areas in two ways I think that education is provided by our committee. One is by contributing bar articles to the Florida Bar Journal. Dan, Don, and I serve as editors for those articles, and we've worked with prior chairs to really have a strong pipeline of articles. I think we're booked out till maybe fall of next year with folks who have volunteered to author articles for the Bar Journal, and we're actively working with several authors to get their articles in publication-ready format. But all the information that's needed to submit a Bar Journal article is here on the page. Of course, we're happy to guide people through the article submission process and the editing process. But if you wanted to have an idea of what you might be getting yourself into, if you have any interest in writing an article, the information's right here on our page. equally, if not more important this year, is planning CLEs. In July, as of July 1st, the section adopted a new CLE policy. That's thanks to the hard work of many people, including Judge Delano, our past chair, Mark Stein, Manny, Stephanie Lieb, and our immediate past chair, Luis Rivera. We're very grateful for the hard work that was put in to put together a policy that really explains what the expectations are of each of our committees and subcommittees relative to CLE. CLE is going to take a front seat, I think, in Manny's term this year, because I think it's a really wonderful way to be able to meet our educational goals while also creating some passive income streams for the section, which is good for our finances. The expectation is that each committee, substantive standing committee, subcommittees, and the task force will put forward 4 webinars, 4 paid CLEs during the course of the bar year. So we're all on the clock. Those 4 CLEs don't include things like signature programs or presentations at, say, like the Labor Day retreat, or if there's a CLE presentation at the annual convention. We're really trying to focus on webinars, or if someone wants to go to the work of putting on a live seminar, that's fine too. But the webinars are quick and easy. I can say that as someone who recently put one on. Carly is wonderful. She guides you through the process. We have technology support. So really all you have to do is focus on the substance and come up and complete the application and show up on the day of your CLE ready to present. I suspect pretty much everyone on this webinar this afternoon, if you had to, tomorrow, you could probably put on a CLE. There's so many interesting legal issues, and this group is always on the cutting edge of them. We're blessed with a really brilliant section who's willing to share their knowledge. One thing to be mindful of, as we're working to get these 4 CLEs presented over the course of the bar year, we want those to be quality CLEs. We also don't want to oversaturate the market. So as you begin to think about the calendar and the bar year, be mindful that we've got the Labor Day retreat coming up. Obviously, CLE will be presented there. So, really we want to start picking dates in October and November for everyone's first CLE presentation, so that we don't end up having a bottleneck at the end of the bar year as everyone scrambles.
Kathleen, sorry for interrupting. When you say picking dates in October, November, those are dates to present, correct?
Those are dates to present, yes, Manny.
Okay, so the dates we would pick would be now to present in November.
That's right. We want to be about 60 to 70 days out. So the process, I think our website does a really nice job of guiding. The first bullet there is the CLE calendar, so that you can take a look and see what dates may be available. Carly, though, is the keeper of the calendar. If Carly had her camera on, you would see behind her wall that has a calendar that tracks all the business law events. It's really quite impressive. But if you're interested in planning a CLE, or you need to lead your committee and guide them towards planning a CLE, reach out to Carly and copy me and propose a couple of dates that might work for you. They need to be about 60 or 70 days out, so that we have time to complete the application and the accreditation process. But that's how you get the ball rolling. So now is a really good time to reach out to Carly and me to start picking your dates for your first CLE if you haven't already done so. Once you've got a date, the next step would be to complete the course development form. And I want to give Carly the floor so that she can talk a little bit about that. Carly's worked really hard this summer to modernize our forms and submission process. The information that's requested on the course development form is the same as it's always been, but we've really streamlined the process, because now we're using a system called FormStat, so that we aren't having to track down multiple PDFs and it's all in one place. But I'm going to turn things over to Carly and let her take it away.
Thanks, Kathleen. I'm sure a lot of y'all have already seen this as the CLE presentation that we did earlier this week. But this is the new FormStat form that we're using. It mirrors exactly what was in the previous PDF form. It's just easier for me and for the CLE committee to keep track of all of the materials that come through with a CLE presentation, especially with the expectation for there to be 4 for each committee, task force and substantive committee. So it's the exact same information. The process will tell you exactly what you need to submit and give you timeframes for which those need to be sent, as well as information on additional resources to provide to speakers, to attendees for accreditation, presenting PowerPoints or submitting PowerPoints and course materials. So everything that's in here is exactly as it was before. It's just going to be a little bit more user-friendly for everybody, hopefully. We've had a couple people utilize this form so far for Labor Day retreat CLEs, and everything has worked pretty well so far. So if you are submitting any of these forms and you have any questions or you see any changes that need to be made, I can make them live. So please feel free to reach out to me and let me know if there's anything that you think I've missed in creating this, and I'd be happy to make those changes for you. Yeah. Anything else that you want me to cover, Kathleen? I can walk through the whole form, but if you want me to do that, otherwise happy to work with CLEs as they come through.
I think that's great, Carly. Thank you so much for the overview. One really great feature about the form stack is that if you need to take a break or you don't have all the information, you can save instead of submitting the form, and you will be emailed a link so that you can come back to it later. Keep in mind that Carly, though, doesn't have access to your link and doesn't have access to any submissions that are in progress. Carly only receives those submissions when they are submitted. So make sure you save that link in a safe place, somewhere you can find it and come back to it, so you can take advantage of that feature. Once you've completed the online form stack, Carly will review it and let you know if she needs any additional information. The hope would be that the form stack would be completed within a week of confirming a date with Carly, so that we can keep on pace for the accreditation process and make sure that the CLE is presented smoothly and marketed appropriately. But the goal and objective would be within a week, but certainly no more than 2 weeks. Once you've got that form stack in, the next part of the process would be to submit your CLE material submissions, whether that's PDFs of case summaries or a PowerPoint presentation slide deck. There's a separate link on our homepage that you can use to submit those. And then finally, the bios and the headshots. Hopefully it's all very user-friendly, but we, as always, welcome your feedback. And if there's anything we can do to make this a better or more effective process, please let us know. And Carly and the rest of our committee, we're here to serve. We look forward to hopefully seeing you. One other important point on the CLE policy: each of the standing committees, subcommittees, and substantive committees, task force, please have your liaisons come to our CLE committee meetings. That's part of the new policy. We will be meeting at the Labor Day retreat on Friday, I believe at 3 o'clock. Details on our room and everything will come closer to time. We also meet in person during the winter meeting in January, and then of course at the annual convention. But given the many changes we've had to CLE this year and the importance of CLE in this year's bar cycle, our committee also has Zoom meetings scheduled in October, November, March, and May. We'll put those on the calendar so that everyone knows about them, and send out Zoom meeting link reminders when we get closer to time, so that if you have any questions or need to touch in with us to give us a report as to the progress towards meeting your 4 CLEs, we can help support you through that process. If you have any questions, certainly I'm available by email. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me, to Carly, or Judge Delana, or any of the other members of our committee. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kathleen and Carly. And I'll reemphasize what they have said. It takes about 60 to 70 days to get these things through the process and to advertise them properly. So if your committees haven't met yet, please meet right away. A Zoom meeting, 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes is all you really need in order to get that done, so you can pick dates and pick topics and get started. A lot of times, all of us get busy, and we sort of put that off until a little bit later. And what ends up happening is we end up with too many CLEs right at the back end. The CLE committee has been working very hard to try to space these out, because we want to have 1 or 2 a week. We don't want to have 4 or 5 and in one particular week, because our schedules wouldn't allow us to attend, number one. Number two, that would overtax the CLE committee and Carly. So please meet right now, if you haven't already, and get those dates and topics over to the CLE committee. Great, thank you very much. Next is communications.
I'll let April go first.
You can go first, Tracy.
Okay.
Great.
For
Welcome,
anybody
everyone.
that
If you don't
hasn't-
know Tracy Eller, she is one of the goddesses of the business law section. She's the person that runs our website, gets all our communication stuff, and tries very, very hard to keep me from messing stuff up, although she's not a superwoman, so she can't keep me from messing up all the time, but she does try hard. Tracy's going to talk to us about communications. We do awesome work here in the section. We're really ramped up. We're really moving forward, but all of that doesn't really get us anywhere unless people know what we're doing. So Tracy, take it away and tell us about communications and what committee leadership should be doing in order to communicate with you so we can get the section's message and good works out to the entire public.
Okay, thank you, Manny. Every committee has a web page. It's up to you as committee leadership to go check that page and make sure it's not stale. Some of those pages are more stale than others, so always keep an eye on it and let me know if you have any updates to the page. You should also be sending your meeting materials. Once we receive your meeting materials, we'll send a meeting announcement out for your committees. So now we should be sending in the retreat materials so we can get those out to your committee members. We maintain an email list for most of the committees. Some of the smaller ones we don't. So if you have communication that you want to go out to your committee members, just send that to me and I'll send it on. If it's something that you want to go to the full membership, then we need to run that up the flagpole, but you do have full control over when communications go out to your own committee. We also have listservs that are available. Some committees have them. If you don't have one, or if you don't know if you have one, just reach out to me and I can help you with that. That's for two-way communication among your committee members. We also have a social media presence. We have a presence on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Please, when you see our posts, when you're scrolling out there, like it, repost it. That helps with the algorithms and keeps our posts relevant. If you see anything on social media or anything that you would like to go out on social media, please forward it to me so that I can send it through our outlets. Also, if you post something that's relevant, please tag us so that I see it and then I can spread it out over our other outlets. That's all I got. I kept it short.
That's short and sweet, to the point. That's fantastic. It keeps us on track. We're not going to have a full presentation here by Peter Valori, but our treasurer, Peter Valori, is
Manny?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I just wanted to
Hey,
piggyback
April.
on a
Sorry.
few things. How are you? Sorry. I just wanted
Go
to
ahead.
piggyback on a few things. You know, Tracy really does so much work to keep us up to date and with the communications committee, but I can't echo that enough, is that as a group, you know, we have our large meetings at Labor Day, at the winter retreat, and again in June at the annual retreat. But communications is really how BLS communicates throughout the year. And so not only is it important to make sure that you have your websites updated so we know exactly what is going on with the group, but we also have weekly submissions of, so if there's anything that your members, that you at your firm are working on that you want highlighted as a member, we're really here to, you know, kind of be your cheerleaders of what your section is doing and also individually what you're doing as a member of the group. So please, we always need articles all the time. So please reach out to us about content because we always need content as well.
Fantastic. Thanks, April. Peter is online here. Peter is our treasurer. Just a reminder for folks, we run under a very strict budget, and that budget is set well in advance of this particular year, and we have to stick with that. It's approved by the Florida Board of Governors. It goes to the Florida Supreme Court to be approved. And that's part of the structure. So if you want to spend money and it's not in the budget, boy, that's a tough ask. Committees should not be spending money unless they're in the budget. And Peter is a really nice guy. You can see he's very friendly, but he's also very strict. He's not going to approve any budget requests or any expenditures or reimbursements that weren't approved. Expenditures and reimbursements need to go to Peter promptly because they go to Peter first. Peter has to approve them. And then Carly and they get sent to Carly, and Carly has to run them through the Florida bar system. So that's something that you all should know and should strictly comply with. One final thing, when we transitioned with program administrators, your section leadership went to Terry Hill, the person in charge of this particular section of the Florida bar, and said, we want a superstar. We want someone that is really fantastic. And Terry said, let me see what I can do. Well, Terry did not give us a superstar. He gave us a superwoman, and that would be Carly Hopkins. She just does everything extraordinarily well, and she's always on top of the ball. But keep this in mind, even superwoman can't do everything all at once. If you have something that you need to run past Carly, please give her a lot of time so that she can process this. She not only works for our section, but she works for other sections as well. We don't have 100% full use of Carly. A lot of the work should be done by your particular committees. We have lots of folks in those committees that are willing to help. And obviously, if you want to advance in leadership, helping out and doing work is how you do that. And we also have fellows that can help. So there's lots of people around to help with tasks. And one final thing, we're all busy lawyers. We're all under a great deal of stress. But when dealing with Florida bar folks and with dealing with our program administrator, keep in mind that we have a lot of folks that are doing a lot of things and making a lot of demands upon them. Be kind. We're all nice folks here. One of the hallmarks of the section is the fact that we're all friends and we're very collegial. Please make sure that you extend that collegiality to Carly as well. So that's all I have. I'll turn it back over to the executive committee, Peter, Robert, Greg, past chair Mark Stein, if you have any comments. Otherwise, thank you very much for your attention. We're going to follow up with more documentation to make your path in leadership a little bit easier. And as always, you're welcome to reach out to me anytime, and I'll try to answer your questions. Folks, thank you for your time. We're done, and we will see you at Labor Day, if not before. Take care.
Thank you, Manny. Great job, buddy.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.